Tropical Storm Earl was upgraded to hurricane status late this morning. Hurricane warnings have been issued for residents from Pascagoula, Mississippi to the Suwannee River in Florida as Earl moves closer to the U.S. mainland. Janetta Jones is standing by in the forecast center with more on the storm's track.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike. We are keeping a very close watch on what's happening with Hurricane Earl in the Gulf of Mexico. Is it going to impact folks in Florida or Alabama or even Mississippi and Louisiana? Very good question. Want to show you the latest information on Hurricane Earl. As of 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time, winds at 80 miles per hour. It has been upgraded to hurricane status. Moving northeast at 14, although the reconnaissance aircraft just went in and discovered that it may be slowing down a little bit. So we'll talk more about that in just a moment. We do have new hurricane watches and warnings in effect. There you have the warnings from Pascagoula, Mississippi to Suwannee River, Florida, and hurricane watches in effect from Pascagoula down towards Grand Isle, Louisiana. This does include the city of New Orleans. That's all new, so we do want to pass that along to you. We have tropical storm warnings in effect from Pascagoula to Grand Isle, Louisiana, which does also include New Orleans. And from Suwannee River, Florida to Enclote Keys, Florida, we have tropical storm warnings. So all of that very new information. Storm surge could possibly be up to 5, 6, 7 feet in places like Pensacola all the way back towards Keaton Beach, Florida. So keep that in mind. And looking at the satellite vantage point, you can see it continuing to swirl there over the Gulf of Mexico, and we are going to keep a very close watch on that. Strong winds and a rising surf are pounding Gulf Shores, Alabama this afternoon. The area is located on the southernmost end of the state. Gulf Shores can expect more rain and wind as Hurricane Earl draws closer to the U.S. mainland. I'm joined now by hurricane expert John Hope. John, we have some new information, and as I said earlier, it appears to be slowing down a little bit.
It has, and we want to be sure that folks understand this Louisiana bit. These are tropical storm warnings now that have been extended from Pascagoula westward, including New Orleans and down to Grand Isle, and a hurricane watch. So these are not hurricane warnings in Louisiana yet. But we have to watch that very carefully because the reconnaissance aircraft out there did suggest that this is slowing down. And what we're beginning to see, Janetta, is a little more organization around the center. In fact, the strongest winds reported in the last pass for the very first time were west of the circulation center. They weren't up to hurricane force winds, but they were getting close.
Okay, and as we look at the radar, we can see that the bands of rain already moving onshore in the Florida Panhandle.
What we've had, yes, indeed they are, and no matter what, they're going to continue to get pounded by heavy rains. The only thing this slow movement is going to do that people need to be concerned about, slower movement, it might delay the time finally of landfall. But the rain is already there, the winds are already up, and that's going to stay that way. Now looking at the radar, we see right around here on the west side a little bit better organization. So we're going to have to watch that carefully. The pressure on the last recon picture was just the same, so thankfully that hasn't dropped any in the last few hours.
Explain to folks what you mean by that. When the pressure drops, it's intensifying a little bit?
That's right. There's a good correlation between what the pressure is and what the wind is. The lower the pressure, the stronger the winds.
Okay, so we don't want to see that happen. I want to remind everyone we do have flash flood watches in effect. Do you expect that these could be expanded, John?
They may be expanded a little bit to the west or east, yes. It's going to be a wide area that are impacted by heavy rains and possibility of flash floods.
All right. I want to show everyone this close-up radar, and you can see Pensacola right in here, and here we have Panama City and Tallahassee, all in the rain field right now. We may see strong thunderstorms, maybe even severe weather, right?
And you'll notice that the center of circulation is down here, not very far from the Louisiana coast, closer than it is to, say, the Florida coast.
Do you think we will see intensification since it's slowing down?
I think we're likely to see some, yes. The fact that it's stalling out over water a little bit gives it more of a chance to intensify.
And the waters are very warm.
Very warm indeed. They are.
Temperatures?
Well up in the 80s, 85, 86.
Okay. Looking at this satellite vantage point, yesterday and today we saw most of the convection to the east of the center of circulation.
Well, if you look at the satellite picture, we still see that. All this is over here is east of the circulation center being right back in here. But now, as I indicated a while ago, some is beginning to wind around. It's not up, the tops aren't high enough to show up bright on the satellite picture yet.
Okay. And as far as the projected path is concerned, John, a little uncertain?
A little uncertain. We're still looking for a northeast path, but we want people to really stay tuned here this afternoon because this may, because of the recent slowing down, may have to be re-evaluated a little bit. This is a pie-shaped area originally that the forecast track was along. But we have to be concerned back here because the center is not very far off there yet, and a movement a little bit more towards the north could put these folks back into where they'd have higher winds.
Biggest threat with this hurricane?
Well, I think the wind and the heavy rain, maybe very heavy rain. The rain is already falling. We know that's going to be there. But if it gets to be a hurricane, a stronger hurricane than what it is, it's already a hurricane, then we'd have to be concerned more somewhat about wind damage, which we haven't worried about too much up to this point.
I'm wondering about the rest of the southeast. Are we going to see heavy rainfall further inland?
Well, you're certainly going to have heavy rain up here along the path. Now, if the path comes up like so and stays inland, then that area of heavy rain certainly is going to expand.
A lot of tropical moisture.
A whole lot.
Okay. Thank you so much, John Hope, for your expertise. Recapping once again, we're watching Hurricane Earl. It appears to have slowed down a little bit. We'll keep you posted as far as the folks along the Gulf Coast and how you need to be prepared for this. As always, if you're away from your television set, you can tap into the Weather Channel's online service at weather.com. Now back to the studio.
Thanks, Janetta. Elsewhere in the country, the heat returns to Southern California today, and thunderstorms late today in the Northeast could become severe. We'll see where the frontal systems are located. We've got our tropical systems definitely on the map. 2 hurricanes, one in the Gulf, one in the Atlantic, and a tropical storm in the Gulf of California. You could tell it's hurricane season. But a breath of fresh air coming on down from Canada, some drier and somewhat cooler air in Minneapolis and Green Bay and even Chicago. But leading off that advance of that cool air is a line of thunderstorms in the Northeast. The West, a little less rainy maybe this morning than you've been lately, but there's a lot of heat surrounding any showers we have in the Southwest. As we'll see, our clouds from Earl, clouds from Danielle just about out of the picture, and a lot of hot, sunny weather right in the nation's midsection. We're looking at a line of clouds, a band of clouds moving through the northeast United States, as Danielle's clouds will not bother the East Coast. We have showers in parts of New Hampshire, upstate New York, some of them pretty heavy. So we're looking for the eventuality of rain getting heavy at times at Albany, along the Adirondack Northway 87 to the New York Thruway, and 90, the Thruway out around Syracuse, Utica, and even Watertown. Rain, it looks like there's some thunder in there. So rough driving, blinding downpours, and some gusty winds. Some of these could become severe. We're looking at the area around Interstate 80, Du Bois, Pennsylvania, on up into north central Pennsylvania with some rough storms right now. So watch out for dangerous lightning. The west, the sun coming up and revealing a lot of clear skies, although some clouds around Tacoma and Olympia and towards Seattle, a lot of those will dry out. The clouds along the coast will stay for a while. Washington, Oregon, some fog, Northern California, Carmel and Monterey Bay. That's typical in the morning, and even around LA, but the heat is going to be building again around Los Angeles. Actually, some We've got a severe thunderstorm watch in Pennsylvania, the northeastern U.S. threatened by some damaging thunderstorms today. More on that on Storm Watch after we check the tropical update. And indeed, we have some troubles in the tropics. Hurricane Earl was upgraded from a tropical storm this morning at 10 o'clock Central Time, and indeed it should be, as the reconnaissance planes have been finding winds up over 100 miles an hour locally in the eastern semicircle. And if that translates onshore, and it looks like that semicircle would be translated toward western Florida right now, that could be quite damaging. Centered 140 miles southwest of Destin, Florida, with winds 90 miles an hour on mainly, again, the northeast through southeast quadrants of the storm, but locally the reconnaissance aircraft have found gusts over 100. Nearly stationary to maybe drifting east-northeast right now. And again, the direction has been moving erratically over the last 24 hours or so. Pressure 990 millibars. Good news in that it's not dropping, at least right now. It's not getting any stronger at the moment. But hurricane warnings are from Pascagoula, Mississippi to the Suwannee River in Florida, and hurricane watch back around Lake Pontchartrain, New Orleans, the mouth of the Mississippi to Grand Isle, Louisiana. And tropical storm warnings back in the Louisiana area and all the way down to Anclote Key past Suwannee River into Florida. Those are tropical storm warnings, and things are getting quite rough out there as the coastline is curved in such a way that the water could get up to 8 to 10 feet in some parts of Florida as Earl gets real close, especially on the right side as you're looking at the movement. This quadrant, wherever it does eventually make landfall, you could have some very serious flooding out of this. You could see the spinning now of the center of the storm on the visible satellite. Partly cloudy skies, actually, to cloudy back around the mouth of the Mississippi. The winds have picked up a little bit, but the really terrible weather is on the east side of the storm, and it could be just pulling out slowly east-northeastward right now from what we can tell by latest reconnaissance flights. So you'll want to keep a close eye on Earl. We'll have more on Earl, of course, at the top of the hour. And all interests anywhere from Louisiana onward toward Florida should be on a lookout, especially from, say, Mississippi to the panhandle of Florida for hurricane conditions within several hours. Danielle is on its way out to sea after headed on toward the United States and then making almost a hairpin turn. Upper level winds took care of us there. Bermuda did get some winds up to about 50 miles an hour at times and several hours of tropical storm force winds, but now the advisories have been dropped for Bermuda. Very rapid movement, northeast 30 miles an hour. You can see an eye still south of Nova Scotia as the whole thing pulls out to sea, and it'll be undergoing what we call extratropical transition the next couple of days as it moves over cooler water, and we see it turn into a big ocean storm, which Bonnie did too, moving rapidly through the Atlantic. The rest of the Gulf, other than where Earl is, no problem seen. Western Caribbean, not too bad. We've been watching closely a tropical wave coming in from the Atlantic Ocean, which doesn't have a lot of upper support or organization right now. Nonetheless, we'll track it through the Caribbean where it could move into more favorable waters for development. Could be our next development. Stay with us on that. Meanwhile, very unusual storm Isis now, centered 50 miles east of La Paz in Mexico. That's in the Baja, moving north at 10, and winds are up to 70 miles an hour. It's funny that these usually they're either over the ocean or they go on shore. This is finding some warm water in the Gulf of California with 990 millibars pressure. It could even stay over warm water and strengthen into a hurricane. That would be very unusual, but not unheard of. And the tropical storm warnings are up from El Dorado, Mexico to Guaymas and Santa Rosalia, all the way around the Baja to Punta Briojos in Mexico. We're looking at the visible shot on this one with an eye beginning to show up. That's right. Isis may be approaching or reaching hurricane strength over the Gulf of California. Now, for the U.S. mainland, there could be some unusually heavy rains if any remnant rainfall gets up, but we don't expect hurricane force winds over the southwest from this. Tropical storm force would be a bit fetched. We're looking at that tropical wave again, holding its own in the eastern Caribbean. We'll watch that for possible development, and nothing really threatening coming off Africa right now, which is good news. Back in the States, though, an active cool front into the northeast, and of course our tropical systems. This cool front generating thunderstorms in the northeast, a severe weather watch there, and a tornado watch connected with Hurricane Earl in the Gulf of Mexico. Watch out for those storms on the New York State Thruway, moving east of Utica and into Williamsport. In fact, in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, we have a severe thunderstorm warning. More to come. Stay with us.
Hurricane Earl is pounding the Florida Panhandle, but isn't quite yet on shore. Get the latest on this ever-changing storm, plus your weather, just ahead on Weather Center.
When I bite into a York peppermint patty, I get the sensation I'm riding the luge, racing at over 100 miles.